Hello Internet, my name is Ayla Tesler-Mabe. I'm holding a guitar in my hand today because today we're going to be looking at demystifying the fretboard. This instrument can be really confusing if you don't know how to approach looking at it, but if you learn the right systems and patterns that I'm going to present to you today, this instrument is going to make a lot more sense. So if you're ready, let's jump right on into it and I'm going to demystify the fretboard for you. So for starters, just to put this out there, I hope no one gets too upset at me saying this. With the guitar, you don't really need to know the names of the notes you're playing other than what's on the low E string and the A string, because we're going to discover this as the lesson goes on. As long as you start from the right root note, chords and scales look the same in every key. But before we get there, let's take a look at the names of all 6 strings, because that's usually something really helpful to know to communicate, what string you're playing on, right? It can be helpful to come up with some sort of crazy, memorable catchphrase. For example, Eddie ate dynamite, goodbye Eddie. And the first letter of each of those words refers to a string. So, Eddie, we have our low E string, ate, A, dynamite, D, good, G, bye, B, and then we have Eddie again, the high E string. So you'll probably notice that we have 2 E strings, the low E string and the high E string, that are the same note, they're just 2 octaves apart. So now that we have the names of the strings down, let's take a look at what is happening on the fretboard itself. So, every time I move up or down by a fret, I'm moving up or down by 1 semitone. What I mean by that is, let's say this note here is A, which it is. If I move up by 1 fret, I'm moving up 1 semitone and playing A sharp. Now if I move up again, now I'm playing B. It's pretty simple. You might notice that sharps refer to taking a note and going up by 1 semitone. And flats refer to taking a note and going down by a semitone. So for example, this is A, this is A flat, this is G, this is G flat, this is F. But there is a catch here. There's a caveat to this. And that is, between the notes B and C and E and F, there is no sharp or flat. And you'll notice that there is no such thing as B sharp or C flat, and there's no such thing as E sharp or F flat. But once you've memorized that, you can follow along with me here. E, and remember, no E sharp, so this is F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, there's no B sharp, so now we have C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. And now, you might notice that when you have no frets and you're just playing the open string, we have the open E. And when we come up here to the 12th fret, which is usually indicated with double dots on the guitar, here we've got some double dots. Double dots, that's typical of most guitars. That's E up the octave. Hold that thought. We're going to come back to that in just a moment. Let's look at the A string. So now we have A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Hold on. This is no coincidence. We just played the open A string and we found A again up the octave at the 12th fret, or in other words, the double dots. And this is true of every string. D can also be found up the octave here at the double dots on the D string. Here's G. Here's G again at the double dots. B. Here's B again up the octave at the double dots. Same thing with the high E string. Up the octave at the 12th fret, the double dots, we found E again. So just to reiterate again, I personally think that the first step is just memorizing the notes on the E string and the A string. You don't necessarily have to go through the trouble of memorizing all 6 strings equally for the time being, but just in case you really wanted to do that and you just wanted to see what the fretboard looked like with all of the notes laid out on it, You can pause the video right now and take a look, or you can download a PDF of this down below. So one of the best parts of the instrument would be these dots you can see on the frets right here, known as fret markers. We've discussed them a little bit so far, but you don't necessarily have to memorize every single note. You can just really internalize certain fret markers, and then everything is related to that from that point on. A good friend of mine pointed out that if you start here, you have G, and then this next fret marker is A, B, and then C, D, E on the A string. And this pattern doesn't repeat through all of the strings, but you'll start making those connections the more you play, and it's just about finding a system that works for you. Most importantly, I think a lot of guitar players use the fret markers to memorize fret numbers. So for example, on a standard electric or acoustic guitar, the first dot here refers to the 3rd fret. And then we have the 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret. And the reason it can be so important to internalize this is I could be in the middle of a high-action jam session and someone says, go to the 10th fret. I could say, well, here's the 9th fret, here's the 10th fret, right? 'Cause, 9 plus 1 is 10. And now I'm at the right place. Or someone could say, start a scale on the 3rd fret. Well, I'd say, okay, the 3rd fret is down here at the first dot. So another reason that knowing fret numbers can be so helpful as a guitar player is because a lot of guitar players communicate songs through tablature, or tab for short. And for example, you could look up your favorite song, Sweet Child of Mine, guitar tab, online, and you'll find a diagram showing you all of the strings and then what fret numbers you should play in order to play that song. Like it could say, for instance, go to the 12th fret of the D string. And I'd say, all right, Ate Dynamite, go to the 12th fret at the double dots. Okay, great. And one last thing I want to mention in regard to fret numbers for now is an observation that a lot of guitar players make called the tuning system. At times, to most people, I don't know if there's an official name, but basically what it means is, let's say we're on the E string. If I go to the 5th fret of this string, it's going to be the same note as the next string. So the string after E is A, and if I go to the 5th fret here, I'm playing A. Now if I go to the 5th fret of the A string, I'm going to be playing D, which is the string after A. Same thing here, 5th fret of the D string is G, which is the string after. And then, this is unfortunately where the pattern gets messed up a little bit. You have to go to the 4th fret of the G string, and then you'll be playing the next note, next string, B, and then back to the 5th fret here on the B string, and we'll be playing the next string here, E. And this is a great way to tune your guitar also if you don't have a tuner. So now I want to come back to a point that I made earlier in this video about how if you know the E string and the A string really well, you'll know where to build any chord or scale shape that you want. And the beauty of the guitar, if you didn't already know this, is I could learn a crazy chord shape. And if it doesn't use open strings, I'll be able to move it to any key as long as I start from the right root note. And it's the same with scales. And then from there, everything is all about intervals. And we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, but first I just want to show you how to play a basic major scale, because this will be a great shape to help us unlock the fretboard even further. So I'm going to show you first how to play an A major scale. So what that means is we want to start the scale from A for A major. And so if I know this is the open E string, I could go up 1 fret at a time. There's F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A. Or maybe I have memorized the previous trick I talked about where if I know A is the string after E, I can just come up to the 5th fret. Either way, I found the right note, and you do whatever works best for you. Now to talk about that scale shape, this is how it goes. We have the 5th fret of the low E string, 7th fret, 4th fret of the A string, 5, 7. Then on the D string we have 4, 6, 7. On the G string we have 4, 6, 7. On the B string we have 5, 7. And then 4, 5 on the highest E string. So that was 2 octaves of the same scale. The scale only has 7 notes in it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And everything afterwards is just a repeat of the same 7 notes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 1 again, up here at the top. Now, what's crazy about those numbers I just called out is they were referring to scale degrees, meaning this is the first note of the scale, that's the second note, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. But they're also referring to intervals. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know I'm a huge fan of intervals. The major scale basically gives you a foundation of what intervals sound like and what they look like, especially on the guitar. So for example, the distance between my first scale degree and my second scale degree is a major second interval. And then the distance between my first note and the third scale degree, 1, 2, 3, is a major third interval. Now the distance between my fourth scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, and my root note, my starting note, is a fourth interval. And then the distance between my fifth scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my root is a fifth. I'm sure you're sensing a pattern here. The distance between the sixth scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the root is a sixth. And the distance between my seventh scale degree, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and my root is a major 7. And this is true of the entire scale, because if I continue the scale up the octave, it'll be the same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you'll notice is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're same note. And these are both a fifth apart from the root. And this is true of all scale degrees, no exceptions. So like I said earlier in the video, the first step is really just internalizing the E string and the A string and the notes on it, because at the beginning, all you need to know are root notes, so you know where to build chord and scale shapes. And then, if you ever want to get to the next step of understanding music theory and how it applies to the guitar, and understanding really just how all of the notes on the guitar are connected, this is kind of the best approach to get there. So this can sort of be something to work towards, and it will help the guitar make a lot more sense in the long run. So again, this was the A major scale. That's the scale shape we just looked at here, because it starts on A. Now let's say I wanted to play the C major scale. The only thing I would have to do is take that exact same scale shape and start it from C as our root note. So here's A sharp, B, C. And now you'll notice this is the exact same scale shape. And that's the most important thing to take note of. Again, root notes. You'll be able to take any chord or scale, move it to any key as long as you start from the right root note. And then in the long run, if you internalize the intervals using that major scale system I just showed you, you're always going to know where to find, any interval you're looking for. The major third, here's my fifth, here's my sixth, for instance. Now, like I said earlier, it's all about knowing your E string and your A string roots. And I would recommend anytime you learn a chord or a scale that doesn't use any open strings, learn it with both the E string shape and the A string shape. And usually they're pretty similar. The only difference is the B string messes everything up, as we looked at earlier in the video with our tuning system. It's a wonky sort of thing that all guitar players deal with, no big deal. And so this major scale shape, we started here, and that was A major, so we played the A major scale. Now if I wanted to play it on the A string without using any open strings in that shape, I would come up here to the 12th fret, because remember, this is A, this is also A, and then I would play this scale shape. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now not only can you play that scale in both positions, if you go through that intervallic memorization process, to give it an official name, I guess, then you're also going to have this part of the neck really demystified, and you'll know where to find all of the intervals you'd ever need. So the only thing that changes between our E string root shape and our A string root shape is the B string. And we're going to add an extra note on the high E string as well, just because we'll run out of strings. But this is usually the case anytime you move a scale or chord from an E string root to an A string root, so just keep that in mind. But here's what the shape looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So again, I want to really drive home the importance of learning any scale or chord you encounter on the E string and on the A string, because then you'll be able to play any chord or scale. I almost combined the words there. So all of the systems that we've talked about in the video today are really all that I use to this day when I play. It's just about using the fretboard of the guitar the most efficient way possible, and realizing that any scale that you learn, any chord shape that you learn, any chord progression is going to look the same in every key as long as you anchor yourself to the root note. It's wonderful when you don't have to relearn things in other keys because you know the root note, and a certain chord progression is going to look the same in any key as long as you start from the right place and keep the distance between everything the same. So these are the systems we looked at today. We have our open strings, E, A, D, G, B, E. We looked at important fret marker landmarks, like the 12th fret is always the same as your open string. We looked at how the 5th fret is going to be the same as the next string, other than right here on the G string. And we looked at how you can start using these fret markers to memorize important frets, like the 3rd fret, 5th fret, 7th fret, 9th fret, and all that good stuff. We looked at what happens if you ascend or descend by a semitone, and how there's no such thing as B sharp or C flat or E sharp or F flat. We talked about how using the major scale to help you understand the relationship between notes can be really helpful, and how learning everything on the E string and the A string is great in the long run. And like I said, all of these systems are what I use to this day and have allowed me to apply even really complex music theory to the instrument in a way that makes sense. And this is just a great way to understand the fretboard. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned a little something about how to unlock the fretboard. Please feel free to leave a comment down below if there are any parts of this video you'd like me to expand on, or just any topics in general you want me to cover. And I hope you have a wonderful day.